All right. You just watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. One of my favorite movies of all time. And obviously, just a triumph of a film all the way around. It's comedic. It's action-packed. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Thank you so much. Soul Boot for the 5 gifted. I appreciate you. Yeah, I think this is one of the best films ever made. You know, when someone asked me my Criterion Closet picks, this would probably be one of them. I remember when my dad first started showing me films when I was young, I dread a lot of them. You know what I mean? And a lot of them didn't really appeal to me until I watched both of George Roy Hill's films, Butch Cassidy and The Sting. Now, we've already watched The Sting, and I think The Sting has a wicked sense of humor and is great. But I think Butch Cassidy is just so fucking perfect. It's everything, and it says so much. And Paul Newman and Robert Redford are fucking electric in this movie together. They might be the 2 best co-leads in terms of their ability to work together in a film ever. And I would put that on like a short list of like films like Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master. Like there are a few other films where I'm like, damn, it's just 2 actors absolutely snapping, and they're together. There's so many interesting things that this film does outside of what you see in a normal movie. We talked about being limited to the perspective of the 2 leads. You know what I mean? You only see what they see, which ultimately creates this really cool effect about the men hunting them and how you never see their faces, how you never see them because Butch and Sundance would never have seen their faces either. So you're always limited to kind of this implied dread that you usually get from a movie like Alien or Jaws. Also, the movie ends right here because their story ends right there. There's no epilogue. There's no after. There's no, post-climax. It ends where their story ends. And I always think that's really, really beautiful. There are some really great little moments in this film that obviously I think a filmmaker is trying to send a message with a very Delft touch. One of my favorites in the film is Butch Cassidy never killed anybody till he tried to go straight. Like Butch Cassidy was never a violent criminal until he tried to stop being a criminal, which I always love that little aside. There's some really great questions about what it means to be a good person in this film. Can a thief ever be a good person? Because Butch is just a fantastic human being. Everybody loves him. Even the guy he's robbing, Woodcock, at one point says, "Well, Butch, if I could choose to be robbed by anyone, it'd be you. It's a real pleasure, but I can't give you this money." Which is this really interesting kind of look at like, wow, we are all kind of prisoners of capitalism. I'm gonna sound like fucking Hassan Piker, and how we all make our own our money. Is as someone is always getting fucked over in the process. right? Whether you rob them or you pay them less or you pay them more or you don't pay them at all, someone's always getting robbed. So why is Butch Cassidy the one that the Bolivian army sends their goons after? Well, it's because he's the Yankee Bandito. But I love this film. A lot of you were very perplexed by the photo reel. Well, he killed a lot of people, not till he tried to go straight. Butch Cassidy never killed a man, never shot a man till he tried to be working stiff. The photo reel in the middle of it is so great because obviously this is probably all we have left of outlaws of the West are these, you know, old flash photography, sepia tone photos. And I love how they kind of integrate that. Also, there are some really brilliant touches in this. This film is set in 1890 and he has a bicycle. And apparently the bicycle was invented in 1885 and like was distributed. So like that is actually time period accurate. Them having one of the first bikes and riding it around because he's a rich man and can buy something like that. And, you know, him talking about a bike as the way of the future is so funny to even hear that. The soundtrack is fantastic. The action choreography is great. The film is so fucking humorous. You know, it's so interesting. When I said this film was a comedy, a lot of you still didn't believe me, right? Because you think of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and you're like, oh, this is a Western. Westerns aren't funny. They're not funny films. And obviously this is a Western. This is a Western action film. What's crazy about this is this film really ends up being funnier to me than most modern comedies. Which, I mean, look at how they use timing. Look at how human the characters are. Look at some of the interactions are so fun, dude. When he, all right, I think that'll do it. You think you used enough dynamite, Butch? Fantastic. Another thing that I love about this movie, and I don't know if some of you notice, but in the shots where they are in Bolivia, like the good days, the director chose not to use any lines. He basically drops all the auditory volume other than the soundtrack and let the actors just improv. And he actually keeps a wild, here, I'll show it to you. He keeps a blooper. He famously keeps a blooper in this reel, which I think is so fucking great because it has the school teacher laughing so naturally in the shot. And it's so funny to me that he elected to keep this shot because, you know, he wanted that authentic, natural laughter. Here it is. This is the blooper he keeps in the film. Right here. You can see that Robert Redford is supposed to lock this guy in his cell, and he basically just grabs the lock and walks away. You can see, watch. He goes, go ahead, take the lock, and he's like, fuck it, I'm out of here, take the gun. And that's a blooper. But they kept it in the film, and there's something really amazing about that. I think the good days in Bolivia in this film are so profound because a lot of times writers challenge themselves. Like when I watch A Social Network, I'm always put off by how witty the writer needs to be. No one fucking talks like that. No one is like, I see you're reading Thoreau. Thoreau, throw me in a river. I might, if you didn't look so good. What's good? You know what I mean? Just like that fucking like robot fucking. I hate that kind of dialogue. I really do. And ultimately, what they decided in this film was that to have the most natural delivery of happy people, George Roy Hill was like, I'm just going to let my actors have a dinner and talk to one another and smile. And we're going to cut the audio. And in the same way that not showing the shark in Jaws creates dread, and not showing the alien. An alien creates horror. Not having to give you the dialogue kind of lets you fill in that imagination place in your head. There are so many great moments in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, the cut audio, the photo reel, where George Roy Hill is doing something that filmmakers have all but forgot, which is let people fill in some of the details. Let people imagine some of those moments in between the moments. Let them act. Let the spaces be filled with the human imagination. I watch so many movies now, and they're so fucking monologue heavy, diatribe heavy, and you can see that a director is just hammering his fucking script. You have to say this. You have to say this. The audience won't know what you're talking about. And watching a movie like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where you can tell so many of the lines are improvised. Like when he's like, am I Jones or am I Leroy? And he's like, no, Liv. Like what? Like that's such a fucking Paul Newman response to just say Liv. You know what I mean? Like that, of course that wasn't written. It makes no sense. But he's letting two great actors exist within their friendship and kind of massage the script of it and deliver their lines naturally. And that is why Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid feels, less like a Western film and more like a vignette of two friends who lived fearlessly. Even though they're the bad guys, you kind of admire their lifestyle at the end of the day. And God, are they fucking cool. So anyway, that is my diatribe about this movie. As I said, there's a lot you can learn from this movie. Some of the shots are so fucking fantastic. Almost all of the action in the film is very much cheated. One thing I love is like in the one scene where it's like, God, they're in the rocks. All they did was put blanks on the ground behind Robert Redford. And so when he steps back, someone just sets off blanks and it's like, oh yeah, we're getting shot at, but you don't see that. And it's such a cheap and inexpensive and smart way to do a shootout. And it's really, really fun. So there's a lot you can learn from this movie, particularly any aspiring actors. God, if you want to watch how to fucking command a camera and throw shapes, watch Paul Newman, man. No one has ever thrown shapes like Paul Newman. That guy, every fucking look he gives the camera, that one Chad look he gives the bull is just, he was so confident in his time. It's incredible. He had so much fun as a leading man, and it's really, really great. Okay, so that's my little 20-minute diatribe about the film. And now I open it up to you for another 10, 15, 20 minutes for you to ask questions about the film or about films in general. And I'll do my best to answer them. If this is your first film night, we do this every time. Were they gay? They were not gay. Question. I liked the movie. Good question. When I started getting into movies, I didn't know how great Newman was until I saw The Hustler. He really is the best actor of all time. I don't know if Newman is the best actor of all time, but I would say he is by far the most charming. Like if you have one special stat in terms of charisma, I don't know if a leading man has ever had more charisma than Paul Newman. Why sepia tone in the beginning? Again, that is a reference to these. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but these are actual photos of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and the Hole in the Wall gang. So the sepia tone is a reference not only to these old photos that they took of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and the Hole in the Wall gang, but also the old silent films that they made about them as outlaws, because they were two of the most famous outlaws of all time, two of the most famous men of the Old West, including Wyatt Earp, Johnny Ringo, and stuff like that.
This one is a classic for sure.
Thank you. Did they have different locations or pretend to go to Bolivia? You mean for the filming? I don't think they...
Top 5?
I would say top 1. I'd say this is the best Western of all time. Pound for pound, dollar for dollar, if you want my take. If you want to do top 3, it's probably this, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and I'd say Tombstone. I love Tombstone. Are we allowed to watch movies on Twitch because this was an older film and won't be copyright? We're allowed to watch this film on YouTube because there will not be a VOD of this. And also it's on YouTube Free Movies. So YouTube paid for this film to be licensed to whoever wants to go to YouTube and watch it. If you want to use this on your own, you can go to YouTube Free Movies right here. It's a channel sanctioned by YouTube. You click right here and you will see the films that are labeled as free primetime movies. And these films are available for you to watch right now and are as indicated by their free demarcation here. Oh yeah, wow, that's very cool. Do you watch movies in 4K? Do you have a preference?
Serious illnesses, and it was called a Hole in the Wall Camp. Now I know where that name came from.
Interesting. I always, I guess, prefer to watch films in a higher quality. There are some films that I feel look like too robotic or like staged when they get to too high of a quality. There are some films that I almost like a little bit of grit with. One of which is Casablanca. If you watch Casablanca in like the ultra 4K premium remaster, it kind of just looks like people on a stage. And it ruins it for me. So I kind of like the original, like a little dirt in the lens for some films, but not all. I constantly saw chat comparing the film to Red Dead Redemption. Would you agree of these correlations? Yeah, obviously, but I don't think for the reason you think. It's not like they just kind of both sprang up in a vacuum. Red Dead Redemption obviously is based on a lot of Westerns. They watched a lot of Westerns before making that game, and they borrowed a lot of stuff. So this isn't a question, there are direct references to a lot of Western films in cool. Red Dead. Thank you for that, guys. It's a treasure train. I really appreciate you. I really enjoy these movie nights. By chance, do you know if there's a film, if this film was filmed in the Universal lot? Cool. I don't know particularly where this film was filmed. I think some of it was on a sound stage, which could have been the Universal lot. I don't think it was the Universal lot because this was a Fox movie, if I'm not mistaken. So I doubt they filmed on the Universal lot. I think some of it was filmed in Argentina and some of it was filmed in Utah, but I'm not sure. What other movies that are similar to this one we just watched? The number one film I would recommend if you enjoyed this film is The Sting. The Sting is a spiritual successor to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Essentially, this is like two Prohibition era cheats that are the same kind of criminal ilk as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, as played by Robert Redford and Paul Newman again. And it's fantastic. If you're just looking for that very similar vibe, if you're looking for another Western, I'd say Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has kind of what you're looking for, or Unforgiven. But they won't be as funny as this. Do you like any John Wayne Western films?
Totally.
Can I be so for real? I think John Wayne is super overrated. I'm going to be so for real. Rio Bravo and all that fucking shit. I think it's very overrated. And I'm not even saying that because John Wayne was kind of a huge piece of shit. I'm saying that because I watched those movies and I think they were just the films that like a lot of dads jerked off to because he was like a tough guy. True Grit is good.
What do you think modern comedy has lost? I rarely ever audibly laugh at modern comedy, but this thing, and some other old ones you've shown for film night actually broke me a couple times.
Well, one thing I think is really interesting about modern comedy is no shade, but a lot of the people that we cast to be modern comedic film actors are not really trained in comedy. They're like stand-ups. And stand-ups are amazingly funny people, don't get me wrong, but they're not actors. I don't know why that became a pipeline for acting in major motion pictures, like some agent going to like the belly room at the Comedy Store and being like, ha 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 ha, that guy's stand-up routine was fucking hilarious. Let's cast him as a Navi in the next fucking Way of Water film. I'm like, what the fuck? But that happens way more than you would think. And I think that's part of it. I also just think that like comedy now is like trying to be much too, you know, like line delivery heavy rather than just focusing on timing and the performer being funny. I don't know. That could have something to do with it. Also, I just think studios are very nervous about being funny. I'm not going to be the guy who's out here being like, PC culture made it so that you can't ever laugh ever. Trans people are trying to make it so you can't laugh. They hate that shit. Like that's not what I'm saying. But I do think that there is this kind of like invisible hand in film of people who make film and they're trying to make like the least offensive thing possible that the most people will just enjoy as like a McDonald's burger. And I think when you're just making McDonald's burger comedy, no one really cares about it. There's no real voice there. It's like a room of people. It's risk averse kind of slop. And the thing is, you don't have to make all your humor offensive, right? But you need someone to care about it, and you need to have someone to be invested. And when the target that you're hitting is sell a bunch of seats and not actually like speak truth to power with your humor, I think it loses a lot of its bite. Will you ever do a Bollywood movie night yeah, we have before. But I'd like to again.
Can you talk about the scene of Etta leaving and what you thought we might not have gotten about it?
Oh, yeah. Etta knew they were going to die. Etta knew they were going to die. They knew they were going to die. And she was doing them a solid by leaving. I think Butch, I think unless you're really paying attention, like Butch and Sundance basically die when they go straight. You're talking about two guys that kind of have like, by and large, avoided violence for, you know, the better part of their robbing career. Like when Butch is usurped, he chooses not to stab that guy to death, but just knocks him out and lets him rejoin the gang. Sundance doesn't kill the guy who calls him out as a gambling cheat. My lady is pregnant, but I'm the affair and she wants to have my child with her abusive husband. What do I do? I'm so fucking confused. Not my table. I'm roly-poly. This is an Arby's, sir. Yeah, but when they try and go straight and that one guy gets killed, then beyond that, when they have to kill like 7 people to just deliver the bank its money back, I think that their heart kind of dies and they realize that she pitches the other like, hey, you can go straight this way and you can go straight this way. I think Butch and Sundance kind of resigned themselves like, this is our life. We're criminals. We're going to push this to the edge. And that's why she absconds, because she knows like this is the life they've chosen for themselves. You know, kind of like in Leaving Las Vegas, where it's like, you can ask me to do anything. I'll do anything for you. Just don't ask me to stop. Does Newman look like a handsome Norm Macdonald? No. No, not at all. So these were real people. Yes, these were real outlaws in the Old West. Did they shoot that last close up that freezes from all the way from where it zoomed? How did they do that? Telescopic lens? I'll give you that. Robert Redford does look a bit like Brad Pitt. I'll give you that. Have you done The Color of Money for film class yet? No, I haven't. That could be one in the future, though. Redford looks more like Owen Wilson. Yep. Do you do any prep for these film nights, or is this all top dome? No, I prepare. I always try to prepare. I would say about 20 to 25% I have to do off the top of the dome, because I just don't have time. There are weeks that I get behind. This one I prep for. We usually have a list of like pre-approved films that we have vetted, NICU has vetted, where they have to be films without any kind of nudity. They have to be films that are YouTube-free movies or copyright-free films. And they have to be something that I want to talk about. So every week we generate a short list of about 5 or 6 films. And then we go through them, and I'll select one and I'll go, hey, NICU, can you please do a final nudity search through this? And once he does that and gives me the thumbs up on the movie, I'll usually just go through and familiarize myself with the movie again before we watch it together. I always find your analysis so insightful. Movies are my favorite thing in the world. I love movies. I think movies can make you a better person. I think movies can fix your mental. I think movies can make you strain for a better life. I think movies can make you dream. I think movies can make you fall in love. I think it is the most powerful art form. Some will disagree. Some are music people. Some are photo people. But for me, it's always been film. And so when I'm talking about what I think is arguably one of the strongest forces in the world for influencing people in a time and place where everybody seems to get stupider and care less every day, if I can show movies that make people care again and aspire to be charming and well-versed and well-traveled, well, then I'm being a good custodian of my little corner of the world. Thank you, Darkstream. Would you consider this Newman's best work? Cool Hand Luke. Cool Hand Luke is very good, but I'm going to be honest. I think The Sting is Newman's best work, in my opinion. That scene where he's like pretending to be drunk is... It's really like 10 of the most compelling minutes I've ever seen. Like, he's perfect.
Wow, that's very cool.
But this is like grading the three of those as being like, oh, this one's a 99 and this one's a 98 and this one's a 97. Like, it's really hard. They're all three of the most iconic. What did you like best about the movie? Oh, man. I think there is a joy in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I think there's something that everybody feels when they watch this movie where, right or wrong, good or bad, these two men were free. And I think freedom is something that has always appealed, particularly to Americans. And I think sometimes we get this kind of fleeting glance out of the corner of our eye that reminds us, are we really free, or are we living someone else's life? If I work enough, am I free? If I pay enough taxes, am I free? If I buy a house and have a mortgage, am I free? When does the freedom start? Or am I part of a machine that I don't even realize I'm a cog in this endless machination of some other wealthier person? And I think you are reminded that at a certain point, you've got to take your joy. And seeing the joy of two men who just have their best friend and they don't care how people evaluate how they live, right? Like his relationship with his girlfriend's weird. His friend's relationship with his girlfriend is weird. They're robbers. What would you give for one real, free, happy moment? Bygone era fantasy? Doesn't have to be. What is your method for picking the film for film night? Is it off vibes? No, I like to basically diversify my films in a way that you're getting different directors, different films from around the world. I like to do different regional cinema. So I'll never show like 2 American films in a row. I'll usually do like a French film and then a German film and then a Brazilian film and then a Japanese film and then a Korean film and then a film from the 20s and then a film from the 2000s and then a film from the 60s. I like to bounce around and kind of show you as broad a spectrum of film as possible, because I think that will give you the most. I think watching a bunch of very diverse film will have the biggest impact. Now, if you're new to film night and you want to watch the over 200 movies we've watched for film night at this point, fuck this ad blocker. Here is the link to it. You can see a lot of the films we've watched. Do you ever talk about Le Samurai? I did a little bit. I thought it was a really interesting movie. I thought it was so cool. It's obviously such an inspiration for filmmakers like Luc Besson. I see so much of Leon the Professional in Le Samurai, and that's really cool to kind of see how one French filmmaker inspires another. And it was like I loved how much show and don't tell. You know what I mean? For a French film, there was so little dialogue. Usually French films are so flowery in the way they speak. And Le Samurai kind of felt like an aberration in that it was just like everything was so on set. Everything was so on set that some people were even confused by the ending. I saw some people be like, wait, was he set up? Did he know? Like, what happened? Well, he basically was throwing himself into a meat grinder so that his girlfriend would no longer be hassled by the cops or taken into custody for his ne'er-do-well behavior. He basically sacrifices himself, which is really interesting. Thank you so much for the raid. I hope you had a wonderful stream. Those people after them reminded me of Lord of the Rings, the Nazgul, and the inn scene looking out the window. Interesting. Yeah, they do have a little Nazgul to them. We live in a capitalist hellscape and go out just like how Butch and Cassidy do it. No point in pretending you'll see the change you want to see in the world. Just go out guns blazing, doing your best. I'm a little less nihilist than that, and a little less defeatist. That's a little doomer shit, but you know, I'm a believer in this. I am a believer that the system is too big and too broken to affect. So do good in your general vicinity. Too many people with really good understanding of the bleakness of the world don't do enough to help the people immediately around them and be charitable to those in your immediate vicinity. Reach out with your own two arms and make the people that you touch every day, make their day better. Find ways to uplift them. And enough people do that, then we might have the kind of change you're looking for. Social media took away community. Like, it's the worst thing that it stripped us of. Nobody knows their neighbor anymore. And that's a really sad thing. And it becomes really hard to organize or affect change when you can't march hand in hand with someone who has your same ideas. What was the reception of this movie? Oh, people fucking love this movie. People fucking love this. I mean, it's Robert Redford and it's fucking Paul Newman. They threw it off the fucking backboard. I think the internet has done the opposite and connect more than ever. You're wrong. You're 100% wrong. Do you know your neighbor? Do you know Foxy Cheshire? Do you know the person? You do. You do? You do? Really? Really? Yes, they're very nice. Wow, what a specific detail. I'm just kidding you. No, but the social media has absolutely destroyed our ability to communicate. I'm sorry. You can't. You're wrong. You're just fucking wrong, man. When's the last time you saw kids playing in the street, man? When's the last time you saw a kid jump on their bike and go play with their neighbor? Tonight? You are so fucking full of shit, but I love you. Peace and love. Peace and love. Is social media or a car-dependent culture with no third spaces? No, it's social media, 100%. I'm telling you, your social media brain damages you more than like drugs you smoke. I took my son out on the street to walk tonight. Is that him riding his bike to a neighbor's house to play? Listen, man, I love how positive you are about social media. I'm glad that you are a social media cheerleader. I wish I could be that positive, even with something where I do it professionally. But I'm going to tell you this, peace and love. I've seen the brain damage, man. I've seen it. I've seen how minds change when they consume or create social media. I've watched it. I've watched the deterioration. And you know who else has? The people who created social media. Like, go find me someone who created a social media platform who has already made their money, who will tell you that it is not a net negative for your mind. It's going to be really hard for you to find. What family or friend influenced the most with movies and improving their perspective? Wait, which family or friend have you influenced the most with movies and improving their perspective or wellness? Probably Caroline. I'm like a film. I watch a movie almost every day of my life. And I remember when Wake came over and stayed with us, we like sit down and watch a movie after stream every day. And he was like, do you guys watch a fucking movie every day? And I was like, yeah, basically. Yeah. I'm a big movie aficionado. To that guy who was saying that internet is good for you, I don't want to isolate them. I think that you have a good take, and I think that you have a healthy take. I just disagree, by the way. I don't want to make anybody feel this is not Will Neff, the comedian character that I usually do on every other stream. Wednesdays, this is like very dressed down. Oh, here he is. I've seen the opposite. Like my son's ability to learn more words from YouTube is amazing. Also, my stepson learns so much about his passions through the internet, and all my disabled friends I have made and trans community I have found has changed my life. I have seen so much connection on the internet where before I was stuck around some real assholes. Okay, Foxy Cheshire, you have to understand something. You make a lot of sense to me, okay, Foxy Cheshire. And first of all, learning from the internet is not connection. That is the availability of information. That is a good thing. That is not human connection, though. Those things are not equivalent. Now, as far as your disabled trans community, the reason that you have benefited from the internet is because there was no disabled trans community before the internet, man. You weren't connecting at all with that community because they were very sparsely placed throughout the population. Of course, you have benefited from those things, and I'm glad you have benefited from those things. But that is you have to understand that is a very specific example, right? Like, your ability to connect with disabled trans people is probably 1,000x what it was before the internet because there weren't many disabled trans bowling leagues. You know, do you feel me? There weren't many disabled trans like yacht clubs. You smell me on that one? So you make a lot of sense, and I am very glad that you have found community. For the greater population at large, I do think it is more difficult to connect. The use of one of the super long lenses on the shot of the superpose, showing them as kind of a distorted and wispy figures on top, keeping their distance long enough just so they could keep their breath, but never being able to rest, ever being hunted by these superhuman figures, gives us and the characters so much dread and is like never showing the shark. The emotion built from these simple visual storytelling things is truly a lost art. Yes. Super Posse. Sorry. I misread that. Super Posse. I am hopeful for the future. I think in a way we will connect more than ever before and conquer our problems and live in a future Star Trek, but without the sexism. Gosh, I hope you're right. That would be sick. Swallow, please. Huh? Do you think there is any color theory in this? Oh, yeah. Like Butch's white hat at the beginning. I would say there's more color theory in like the sepia tone and stuff like that, but I've never thought about the outfitting. How do you feel about Westerns with long run times like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and the Assassination of Jesse James? Feels like it's pretty common for Westerns. Yeah, I think that to kind of mimic the feeling of like a bleak and desolate landscape, sometimes they make the films feel very ambient and open. Like the movie Hell or High Water is kind of like a modern Western. And they always like have these kind of like long running shots of just open landscape. And I think that is like a staple for Westerns to like ground you in kind of like the heat and reclusion of being in the West. I watched Interstellar for the first time the other day with my wife, and it's shocking how wild that movie changed my perspective on life. It's beautiful. The shots and the music has such a grip on my mind. After watching it, what do you think on it? Yeah, Interstellar is really interesting because Interstellar is kind of like a film auteur's remake of a film that he adores, right? In my mind, I don't know if he's ever said as much, but Interstellar for me is Nolan interpreting 2001: A Space Odyssey and putting his own kind of fingerprint on it. I think for lots of people, Interstellar is a very comforting film because the idea of being
11 is my lucky number.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the 11 months. I think the idea of being agnostic is very painful for some people because human beings love to create mythology to help them understand things. Like a sense of understanding is so core to all human nature that we would literally create cockamamie stories for fucking everything. And so I think films like 2001, A Space Odyssey and Interstellar reintroduce the kind of subtle calm that is created by being a true agnostic, right? The return of this belief that there is something in this universe that could be or would be or is greater than you are and your understanding, and your death might not have the same finality that you dread as you're getting into bed because the universe is so infinite and complex. And I think that kind of creates a security blanket for a lot of people, as it does for me. So I think a lot of people fall in love with the kind of like pseudo faith message that is presented in a 2001 or an Interstellar. I'm just going to spitball here real quick, so hear me out. I think one day Will should hire an IRL movie night and sell tickets for a film and have an open panel afterward. I think it'd go crazy. I'd love to do that. I'd have to find out how many of you like could get to a theater, right? Because if I rent out like a 200-seat theater and then like 20 people show up, I'm going to blow my fucking brains out. So I got to see how I'll find a movie theater and then I'll kind of like pull it. At Will Neff, not sure if you saw when I asked earlier, what are your thoughts about Thelma and Louise in conversation with this film? I couldn't stop thinking of the similarities and contrasts while watching tonight. Seems clear that Thelma and Louise was a response, counter, or even heavily influenced. I think heavily influenced, yes. A response, maybe. A counter, definitely not. Yeah, I think ultimately one of my favorite film teachers told me something that I love. And it's very akin to what David Bowie said, where to take one thing is stealing, to take from many things is inspiration. Films make films, was what my film teacher told me. And the great thing about watching movies is you start to see what great filmmakers were inspired by and also watched the movies that you are watching. You know what I mean? The part of film class is watching movies. So I guarantee that like a Ryan Coogler has sat down and watched a Butch Cassidy and been like, yes. And there are some really great examples of it, like a Thelma and Louise, where, you know, a filmmaker sees a movie and is like, God, that's awesome. I would love to put my own twist on that. Like Ridley Scott probably watched this movie and was like, God, I would love to fucking give my own with some badass, you know, with fucking Susan Sarandon and see. And then you see really crappy examples of this. Really fucking crappy examples of this. Like that. Here, I'll give you an example. 1 second. So a good example is Thelma and Louise, right? That is a fucking great example. Here's a shit example, right? Thelma and Louise, there's no direct yoinking and twisting there other than an idea and a vibe. Here is a bad example. This is one of the best shots in film history. This is the Lahain mirror scene.
C'est moi qui parle là. Oh, c'est à moi que tu parles. Les mecs, c'est moi qui parle, son cul. C'est à moi qui parle, putain. C'est à moi que tu parles comme ça.
So that's one of the best shots in history, right? Any cinephile will tell you that's in the top 100 coolest shots. It's fucking incredible. Also, if you haven't seen that movie, go see it. Here is a bad example of how to be inspired by a film. Recently, Ishana Shyamalan, I almost botched that. I'm doing my best. Made a film called, oh God, what's it called? The Watchers. Made a film called The Watchers, which was really not a great film. And for some reason, she felt like it was a good idea to just directly rip that shot from Lahain. Let me see if I can find it. She literally just takes the mirror shot from Lahain and like puts it in her movie. And it was like, what the fuck are you doing? One second. Damn, I don't know if I can find it without pulling up the movie. Was there a twist? Yes, that shot was no longer in Lahain. I don't know if I can find the shot because I don't. Oh, look at this. Guys, remember that shot I just showed you? Look at this. I actually found it. This is crazy. Literally the exact shot. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah. Isn't what Quentin Tarantino does is take scenes from classic movies, yoink and twist? Quentin Tarantino, yes, there's yoinking and twisting. And there's even some like directly yoinking and twisting. You have to understand this though. What Tarantino is yoinking and twisting, like a real yoink and twist from Tarantino is from a kung fu movie that like only the most devout of film nerds has ever seen during like a gravity bong induced crate dive to watch like the most obscure kung fu. Whereas M. Night Shyamalan's daughter taking one of the 50 most recognizable shots in film history and including it in her film about fairies that has no link to the sample media in any way is like it's not, that is apples and oranges. Is this what Aronofsky did in Requiem for a Dream? This is what Aronofsky did in Requiem for a Dream. Aronofsky, frame for frame, took a bunch of scenes from Perfect Blue and Millennium Actress, which is kind of crazy. I love apples. Thoughts? They are good. He paid the director though? Yeah, but in an interview, the director basically said he had no idea what he was getting for his money. Listen, Aronofsky is a fantastic filmmaker. I do not discredit him for what he did. I think those films are still very good in their own right. But in his own words, in an interview, Satoshi Kon said something to the effect.
For that mirror shot is the one in Contact.
Yes. I love that. I love Contact. Satoshi Kon in an interview in the most Japanese way possible. It's like a very obscure Japanese language interview. At one point, he basically was like, yeah, Aronofsky did pay me, but I didn't understand he was going to like take one for one inspiration from my movies. That was not really the expectation. And I think his quote was like, it was weird to see my movie in his movie, which is like, that's a yikes. You know what I mean? Like Satoshi Kon in his own very Japanese way Like his very honorable way was kind of like, yeah, I wasn't cool with what Aronofsky did. But to the Aronofsky fans, I still think that those films are incredible. It just is a little strange that it does seem like Darren saw Satoshi Kon's work and was like, yeah, I can make that stuff live action. Why else would you pay him for an homage? Keck W. No, I think he paid him to consult. You would have to look into this on your own. I went down this rabbit hole probably like 15, 20 years ago and read these interviews. But just so you know, yes, he was paid. No, he was not cool with the final product. So this is not me being an arbiter of what is fair or right or real within the film world. I'm just giving you the information that I have. I found the interview.
Requiem for Dream という
Here, yeah. So there's also a written one, but
映画をご存知ですか？
すいません、ちょっとわからないんですけど。
ダーレン・アロノフスキーっていう監督が撮ったんですよ。
はい。
で、どうやらお気に入りらしいと。
はい。
で、レクイエム・フォー・ドリームで彼が来日した時に会ってるんですよ。対談しようと。
はい。
その前に当然そのレクイエム・フォー・ドリームを見たんですけど、これとですね、このカットね、俯瞰で風呂に顔をつけている。はい。で、窒息しそうになっているわけですよ。それは
最初これもう浮いてるのかなってちょっと思いました、ね。
顔つけてるんですね。で、ここでこらえきれずにバカ野郎と。この2カットまんまアングルも構図も同じで。
上からのと、この水の中の。
レクイエム・フォー・ドリームに、使われているんですけど、本人に会って確認したら、オマージュだってオマージュですよ、私に、この私に。でレクイエム・フォー・ドリームでこのじゃあミマのこのお風呂にこう入ってるのとこう顔つけてるの誰がやってる？ジェニファー・コネリーですよ。ジェニファー・コネリーがやってるんですよ。あら、俺のコンテ通りにちなみにね、ジェニファー・コネリーはね、去年同じ飛行機に乗ってました。ファーストクラスでしたね、向こうはね。一家でビジネスクラスだったんでね。でまあその「レクイエム・フォー・ドリーム」という、映画の中ではですね、非常に年老いた女性、年を召した女性が、ずっとテレビに出ることに憧れてて、最後この部屋の中で幻想を見て、そのテレビの中から人が出てきたりとかですね。
なんかでも話もちょっと
でその女性が最後、幻想の中で着る服が真っ赤なドレスだったりとかです。えらいこれは
かぶってますよね。
かぶってるっていうかパクリだんじゃねえのみたいな。いやでも本人にやってあれはどうなのって、いや全部オマージュ。
Okay, so this isn't.
学習しました。
I learned a lot. This isn't the only time Satoshi Kon spoke about this. I actually have not seen that interview. I read a transcript of an interview he did for a magazine, and he said something to the similar effect, but you have to understand, like, for a Japanese man, this is the equivalent of like him pulling out his ball sack and slapping it in Aronofsky's face. You know what I mean? Like, Japanese men are like so reserved with the way that they will express frustration to a coworker or a peer, that him being like, is it an homage or is it a ripoff? It is like the Japanese equivalent of like, fuck you! Like that. It's also, I don't know if you caught it, but him saying, Jennifer Connelly, who is in the film that was an homage to me, was riding in first class and I was in the back of the plane. Like, very like, okay. All right. Okay. But yeah, I haven't seen that one before, but I've read another transcript, and all you need to know is he was not cool with the final product. And ultimately, there might be some truth to the fact that Aronofsky got caught.
Would you consider watching Close Up for a film night? Assuming you have seen it. Feels like a love letter to film and fans of the art to me.
Close Up. I've never seen this movie. I'll have to check it out. It might have been the case where like the plagiarism was discovered, and then the studio paid out Shitashi to be like, you know what I mean? Like that happens a lot. Like with Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. There's like a wee good payment to let it exist. And, you know, you never know what happened behind those closed doors. All you know is that Shitashi Kon ultimately threw shade like a goddamn oak tree. You know what I mean? I found a side-by-side. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. This isn't the only scene, too. There's a lot. Yeah, it's a 1-for-1. Did he steal ass to ass? You're just going to have to watch Perfect Blue and find out. Gaspar Noé did a really cool bathtub scene in Love Without Ripping Off Other People. Gaspar Noé does a lot of really cool scenes. Pretty much 90% of what he does is very, very, very cool. All right. Do we have any other film questions? Any other film questions beyond statements? The songs in this movie felt out of place to me in a Western. I don't get it. What am I missing? I think ultimately Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is a film about two friends that happen to be set against a Western backdrop. And that's what you're missing. I don't think this film ever considers itself a hardline Western. Hey, you video game. Thank you so much for the raid. I hope you all are doing well. What's up, guys? Hello, good sir. Hello. I was about to call it a night. I'm just ending my film night. Thank you for the late night raid. I appreciate you, kings. So are we playing Tarkov or talking movies? We're just finishing my film night and calling it an evening. Actually, I'm just wrapping up, unfortunately. Turns out Paul Newman did buy a ranch. Indeed, he did. He also made ranch. Like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed. 'Cause crying's not for me. No. Anyway, that's my time, gang. I'm gonna call it. I'm cooked. Yes, I saw Backyard Baseball is on Steam now. I'm gonna be doing a backyard. Shut up, Will. I'm gonna be doing a backyard baseball run pretty soon, probably this weekend, where the fish win the pennant again. Anyway, for any of you that are new to movie night, I hope you enjoyed it. For those of you who have been here for the last 5 fucking years, I hope you come back each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. West Coast time, to watch a movie and broaden your horizons a little bit. Guys, it's really interesting. Kind of put on a character a lot to stream and entertain. And Wednesdays are my most stripped down stream. This is kind of the closest you'll get to a baseline Will Neff. And it's always very gratifying to share kind of this piece of myself with you, this joy and this love of film, and have it reciprocated by so many every single week. It's a real pleasure. So I hope I give back a fraction of the joy and happiness that you've given me. As you have allowed me to stream for a living. It really is a fucking joy. I am constantly reminded how lucky I am, not only by the people in this community, but by the people that I am surrounded with, and how often I am thankful for this very silly job. So thank you for employing me. Thank you for coming here every Wednesday. Thank you for coming here every night. And I appreciate y'all so much. I'm going to send you over to Nesua. He's doing the new Tarkov wipe. I will probably be participating in it tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, y'all. Stay dangerous. And until the next time I see ya, good night.